Okay, June, thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are, and welcome into this webinar, which is coming at the right time, taking in consideration the context we are currently in, meaning the humanitarian and development sector. So I am Mulai Kamara. I'm the Technical Director for Funding and Financial System at Humentum. I'm based in Johannesburg. And we have a wonderful panel, and I will start with Nicky to introduce herself. Over to you, Nicky.
Thank you so much, Malai. Welcome everybody to what looks to be a really important discussion. My name is Nicky Roux. I am the Senior Program Officer in the Ford Foundation's Office of Southern Africa, and I lead particularly on two key areas. One is gender, race, and ethnic justice, and the other is on our civil society resilience program called the Weaving Resilience Program. So happy to be here.
Okay, thank you so much, Nicky. Let's move to Kristen Rasmussen. Over to you, Kristen.
Hi, thank you so much, Malai. My name is Kristen, and I'm the U.S. representative for Dan Church Aid. DCA is a Danish civil society organization that was founded over 100 years ago by the Danish Lutheran Church. We operate in 19 countries. Most of them are in Africa. I myself was based in Cambodia for almost 20 years, where 10 of those years were with DCA. And it's my great pleasure to be here. I'm currently based in DC, representing DCA to the US government and other US-based stakeholders.
Okay, thank you so much, Kristen. Wycliffe, over to you.
Thank you, Malai, and good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are coming from. Yeah, so my name is Wycliffe Ouma. I work at Wits University, or famously known as University of the Witwatersrand, as a researcher. And I'm attached at the Center on African Philanthropy and Social Investment. It's a center that is trying to, we are, I think, in our 8th year of existence currently. So we are at a critical stage of actually understand our, the contribution we have made so far. I think for most of you, perhaps, who have interacted with us, especially through our various convenings and undertakings, you may relate that the Center on African Philanthropy is very much interested in the infrastructure of philanthropy in the continent, and really to conceptualize how philanthropy is defined. I mean, there's philanthropy for Africa by Africans, and, with Africa. So, and these are some of the relatable issues that we should be talking about today, especially given the, the kind of the global ecosystem that we exist in currently. So, besides being attached at the center, I mean, I am also leading a research project currently, which is funded by Mastercard Foundation, really to try and understand the contribution of the nonprofit sector on African communities, I mean, especially through youth employment. And this is a 17-country project that we are currently undertaking. We are in the 2nd year, moving very closely to the 3rd year. So I'm happy and I'm willing to share, our experience, our knowledge, and what it takes for us to move from this impasse that we are sort of currently experiencing going forward. Thank you, Mulai.
Okay, thank you very much, Wycliffe. I really appreciate that. Over to you now, Lydia.
Thank you very much, Mulai. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lydia Madyirapanze from Zimbabwe. I work for an organization called the Forum for African Women, Educationalists Zimbabwe chapter. We are an organization that works to address gender disparities in education. We are also an affiliate of a much bigger organization called the Forum for African Women, Educationalists Fawezi. Thank you, and over.
Okay, thank you very much, Lydia. So let's dive in, because today's topic is financial sustainability and in a dynamic environment. We'll start with the first question to understand why is financial sustainability important, and especially now more than ever. So over to you, panelists. You can come in no specific order.
Okay, thank you, Melai. Before responding to that, allow me to say in early 2023, the organization I work for, Fawezi, was selected to receive support in terms of being trained towards financial sustainability by Humentum. We did not receive direct finances for this, but we went through an intensive, innovative and organized process. And in the first few weeks, we were asked to fill in a financial sustainability assessment for the organization. And we went through a 29 quiz questions. The next couple of months saw us going through several online sessions, the secretariat, the board, which included individuals and team sessions. Why I'm giving this background is just to say financial sustainability is really an important process that an organization has to go through. And after having gone through this process, I realized that it is a very important process that organizations have to go through. So in terms of responding to your question, Malai, we all know that once organizations are financially sustainable, they are less dependent on donors. Without financial sustainability, you cannot plan, you cannot grow, you develop strategic plans, but you never implement them. You have a high staff turnover. It is so stressful. Those who work in smaller organizations know that if you are not financially sustainable, you risk burnout as you carry out more than one tasks. You are the director, you are the driver, you are M&E, you do everything. So all NGOs require, all organizations need finances to survive, to pay off staff, to maintain equipment, to license equipment, and carry out their activities. So I would say, in brief, this is why it's very important for an organization to be financially sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lydia. I hope that it resonates with other participants in it. Humentum has that training. It's free for you. It's funded by Ford Foundation, but you have to be from the Southern Africa region. But for other region, we have Ford Foundation has the resource hub in East Africa, Western Central Africa, and also in Asia and Southern America. So please, you can contact Humentum directly and we'll be able to direct you if you are not part of Southern Africa. Okay, let's move to the next panelist to respond to that first question. Who want to come in?
I think I'll come in.
Okay, Vazi,
If
I'll
that's
go ahead,
okay.
Nicky. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think my first point would be, what is sustainability? Just in terms of, I know that this particular session is talking about financial sustainability, but we often, and even within the hub, talk a lot about what does sustainability of an organization look like. And so there are many, many different things. And so I think that for me, this is a very important question when you're thinking about an organization is, you know, financial sustainability, as Lydia points out, is at the core of how you are able to do your work. But there are other things as well, which I think we need to always talk about. I think the second thing I want to say is that civil society, in its role as almost watchdog or interlocutor between states and rights and people, beneficiaries, communities, people, the importance of keeping the civic space healthy, which includes sustainability, which includes financial sustainability, is really key. And in this moment right now, which is so dynamic and things are changing every single day we wake up, I think in the face of the fact that we're seeing a lot of backlash from sort of more right-wing ideology around the rights that we've made and gained over a number of years. If I think of my own country, where enshrined in our constitution are all the rights that are afforded to us, you know, without a civil society space, a healthy, sustainable civil society and a civic space, we will not be able to hold the line on many of these rights. And so I think that it's in the interest of everyone, you know, donors, states, and individuals and citizens, that we have a healthy, sustainable civic society, particularly now. we're all working towards equity, an equitable world. We want a world where we are all able to afford all of our rights and access all of our rights, whatever those may be, whether we're working on gender-based violence, women's rights, natural resources, etc. We all, as those involved in civic space, are working towards an equitable world. And so I think that we need to have a sustainable civil society in order to ensure that we don't lose any of the gains we made, and to gain more rights of those that are still not afforded to certain citizens.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicky. This is really valuable, and I hope that participants are taking note, and I'm expecting a lot of questions coming after that. Over to you, Kristen.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Nicky, thank you so much for raising these points. The first question that also comes to my mind is, what is sustainability? How do we define it? And what does it look like depending on the context in which we work, right? So if I think about the work that DCA does, largely humanitarian, very difficult to sustain financially, just because of the nature of the work. So donors have made a commitment. Many of the donor countries have made a commitment to supporting this work. But what we see now is that things can change dramatically and overnight. And I'm sitting here in Washington, very close to what's been happening here. I really think that even those of us who read Project 2025, Chapter 9, did not foresee what has happened. And sadly, we saw the reaction to that was actually for the UK to cut funding, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany. And so really, we are seeing this massive contraction. And so this is the moment where we will have to step up and find alternatives. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. I think one of the things, and this touches a little bit on the second point that Nicky was raising, said INGOs and all civil society need to be mindful of the importance of a constituency base. One of the things that we're hearing here in Washington is that USAID and its closure was, a soft target, right? Because there is really almost no constituency base for this type of work. There was very low awareness about what USA does, about what we in the humanitarian and development sectors do, and how it actually does help to protect the interests of, not only the US government, but also other countries around the world. DCA has that through the Lutheran churches and other, we have secondhand shops in Denmark, we have volunteers, affiliated youth organizations, and I think this is something that those of us in civil society need to really focus on. So that's the role that we have to play in building those stronger connections with the broader public.
Thank you very much, Kristen. This is really insightful. And let's move on with Wycliffe. What's your perspective with this first question?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Mulai. I think just to try and consolidate to what the colleagues have talked about, sustainability really is for whatever type of an organization. I know our focus here is on a nonprofit organization, the civil society type, but I think sustainability is the ability of that organization to withstand whatever type of shock that comes its way, to be able to deliver, its mandate responsibility despite whatever the turbulence that the organization is going through. So I think as we think about the current turbulence that the current global dynamics present to us, for a sustainable organization means a resilient organization will still not be able, we'll still be able to carry on providing or committing to its mandate and the commitment to the longer term, or whatever the goals that they have in place. So I think, and there are many issues that affect this sustainability. I think partly we may be able to talk about this later, but I think the idea of resilience, to be able to proceed despite the turbulence that present whatever point in time, that's what really should be able to define sustainability. And if you don't think about it in terms of financial, then I think non-profit sector, especially the one in the global south, should begin to think very, very much, outside the box. And we can talk about, how this thinking outside the box can be done in the later iteration of this conversation. Thank you, Mulai. Mulai, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you for that. So thank you so much, Wycliffe. What you have said is very important and also highlighted by Nicky and Kristen about sustainability. So before wrapping this first question, June, can you please mute all the participants to allow us having a better conversation? So to wrap up, we can say that financial sustainability refers to an organization's ability to generate and manage financial resources to maintain its operation, fulfill its mission, and achieve longer-term stability. Okay, it's ensure that an organization has diverse, predictable, and sufficient funding sources to cover its cost while adapting to changing circumstances and economic conditions like now. And Humentum advocates for financial sustainability as a critical component of effective and resilient civil society organization. Its approach includes promoting full cost recovery by encouraging organizations to budget for their actual cost, including overhead, so that the funding reflects the real cost of delivering impact. You have also advancing flexible funding models by supporting unrestricted and multi-year funding to enhance CSO's ability.
Malay, you're muted.
Okay, thank you for that. So we have also the capacity strengthening by providing tools, trainings, and advisory services to help organizations build a robust financial management system and governance structure. And you also have the policy and advocacy by engaging funders, government, and international agencies to shift funding practice towards a more sustainable and equitable model. And lastly, you have the data-driven decision-making, which encourage the use of financial data to inform strategy, inform financial health, and demonstrate impact to stakeholders, as Lydia explained early in her introductory speech, when she went for the financial sustainability training funded by the Waiving Resilience by Ford Foundation. They went through an assessment first. So it's important. These are the tools that Humentum use to help organizations for their financial sustainability. And to conclude that, Humentum's Waiving Resilience Initiative and Flexible Funding Working Group who developed a guidelines last year are the key efforts at improving financial sustainability for CSOs in dynamic environment. Through these initiatives, Humentum facilitates conversation, share best practices, and advocate for more sustainable funding approach. So you can go on the website or on the LinkedIn profile of Humentum to see all these tools that Humentum is sharing. So let's now move to more details. How can organizations transition from traditional to sustainable funding model? And what diversification strategy can they use? Over to you. Anyone can come first. No volunteer. I will pick one panelist. Oh.
Happy to jump in.
Okay, go ahead, Kristen.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think, I was asked to speak from the perspective of INGOs, and I really think, this funding freeze and then, dramatic reduction / cancellation of awards is really, resetting everything within our sector. especially for INGOs and contractors in particular. So going forward, and this is particularly of American INGOs, they will need to join forces with one another. There will have to be some mergers. US INGOs in particular they don't have a very strong history of going into consortia. Donors will certainly want to see that. So we're not talking about moving away from donor funding as such. I do think that is still going to be, an important source of funding going forward. But I do think that the era of large contractors, at least for now, is over. And that this really emphasizes then the importance of these consortia with INGOs like DCA, together with local organizations. So we do, in many of the countries, most of the countries where we work, actually work through local partner organizations. We share overheads. We split the overhead that we're given by the EU. This is a way that we can contribute to supporting sustainability within local organizations. And I really think that the development and humanitarian sector is going to go back to what it looked like in the 70s and 80s. It's just going to be much smaller scale. And while this will be difficult to accept, I think the positive side of it is that it can encourage more meaningful and sustainable partnerships with local and national CSOs. And what I was saying earlier about the importance of constituencies, DCA has done this for many years. We have celebrities in Denmark that we use, they're sports celebrities. We have also Princess Marie of Denmark is one of our representatives. That can be done. It's more realistic, I think, to do in middle income countries. But there are, of course, opportunities to have them be a voice and try to engage constituencies to raise awareness of the work of CSOs. And also, I would use the importance, and this relates also to some of the challenges, I think, that INGOs have faced in really not using social media as a way to raise awareness about the work that we do. TikTok has been referred to as a Hudson Collective as the next generation of advocacy. It can play a role in really trying to raise awareness, among farmers in Kansas and other people across the US as to the importance of humanitarian response, foreign assistance at large, in terms of mitigating security risks and health risks to Americans. So these are some of the ways I think that we can, generate that support within the US. And it's, of course, important for those in other countries, in the global majority, to also do that at their national level.
Okay, thank you very much, Kristen, for sharing this perspective from INGOs. Nicky, could you please jump in?
Yeah, sure. I think I want to pick up on one of the things that Kristen said and just slightly change it for our context. I think one of the things that we have to see now is solidarity between organizations. And I'm not talking about the sort of forced collaboration that funders sometimes want, but rather solidarity in terms of how we look at using models that we are able to share. So, for example, we had some discussions in 2020 during the pandemic, which in and of itself was a particular dynamic period. Yeah. And some of what our partners were telling us was maybe we could use the same HR person, maybe we could use the same finance person. And so in that way, the sharing of costs, so that we didn't, that you were able to kind of save on work, but also the solidarity in the way in which we work, coming across and not kind of keeping in our silos. And I know that we do that as funders too. So I'm not pointing any fingers at civil society organizations, but really starting to come together in terms of this. I do want to say, though, that while the current situation is really overwhelming, we have seen that, for example, women's rights movements and organizations, and in particular feminist organizations, have often been at the bottom of the receiving end of funding anyway. and have some amazing kinds of ways in which they've worked. Now, that has had its own challenges, and we'll speak about that, I know, a little bit later. But I do think that, you know, we need to almost right-size this conversation about where money has been pulled away from and who remains largely, you know, in the same struggle. So almost like, well, yes, there's been a funding freeze from Belgium, USA, you know, all of the ones that Kristen mentioned. But there are many civil society organizations who are doing tireless work on the ground that have struggled. Sorry, we're having a bit of a thunderstorm. So if you hear that, apologies. But that have struggled with sustainability and resilience in the face of dynamicism, but because they've had to work in that way. And so I think that this is just an additional layer. So for me, I think some of the other things is advocacy. I think we need to do, those of us who are in the funding spaces or intermediary spaces, need to do a lot more advocacy for civil society organizations for more and better funding. So the things you were talking about, Malai, which is about unrestricted funding, trust-based philanthropy, you know, allowing organizations the flexibility to be able to do things like have a reserve, or to do things like paying staff equitable salaries so that they'll be able to work and not work under pressure and always be overwhelmed. And always be working in austerity with all the stress that comes from that. So I think part of, for me, the point I want to make is that there are ways in which we can ask civil society to do this sort of sustainability, resilience planning, and so on. But I also think that the other actors, you know, within the ecosystem also need to be doing advocacy for, like I say, for more and better funding, for unrestricted funding, for flexible funding. And very proud to say that although Ford takes a lot of flack in the sector, one of the things that we are very proud of is that 85% of our overall global funding, and it's higher in Southern Africa, is flexible, is either core or general support. Very few project-based funds. And so I think this is also one way in which you can help organizations to plan and diversify as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicky. This is really, really informative for participants here. This perspective from a foundation which is really active in the flexible funding stream. So over to you, Wycliffe. Please give us from an academic perspective and also as a civil society organization from the work you're doing with MasterCard Foundation for it.
Thank you, Molai. I think before I go to MasterCard Foundation, because we are talking of sustainability, in other words, we're talking about the resiliency to keep on, you know, producing and, you know, doing what your mandate deserves to be. So there are many angles to which I think the nonprofit sector or the civil society, whatever the lingua that you want to refer them to is, I mean, there is always an untapped opportunity between the corporate sector and the nonprofit sector. And when I talk about this, I'll give an example of South Africa, but this is not unique to South Africa itself. A lot of corporations are interested to do what they so-called corporate social responsibility. In many ways, they really do not know how to do it. And I think the collaboration between the nonprofit sector and them can really help to amplify them. But the nonprofit sectors need to understand to what angle, how do they, beam light more on certain priorities of the corporate sector that they want. I mean, a lot of corporations, even here in South Africa, are interested in many issues that the nonprofit sector is trying to address. But that synergy will bring in a surety of financial sustainability that the nonprofit sector is really struggling to get. And then again, the issue of over-reliance on donors, we know donors have been shifting, over time, not just now, it's not starting now. Of course, now we have disruptions given the USA aid and the rest of the things that are coming with the new government in Washington. But there is always an opportunity for the nonprofit sector to properly diversify their income streams. And there are many examples of the nonprofit sectors that have done these, and they're not shocked as much. And COVID-19 was a very good example that showed a lot of non-profit organizations that were well organized in their diversifications of streams of income or their resourcing or revenue, and they were not as impacted as the others. So I think I would raise those two questions. There's an opportunity existing with collaboration with the corporations or the for-profit sector and the non-profit sector. And there is also an opportunity of looking at how do we diversify the streams of income. I mean, there are many issues to be talked about when you talk about the diversification of income, including local resourcing. There is tremendous opportunity that exists locally. It's just about for the nonprofit sector to think and be creative on how to use local resourcing. I mean, coming from a philanthropy organization, we know, and our understanding of Africans, and that's why we talk of philanthropy in Africa and African philanthropy. Africans are philanthropic in many ways. I mean, Africans are known to be philanthropic in their own ways. Yeah. But it is important for this organization to begin to understand that dependence and reliance on the external sources may not be sustainable forever. Begin to cultivate what is within us, what exists within our communities, and those resources are available and they can be easily tapped to help progress to help build the resiliency that the organization deserves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Wycliffe. And this is really informative. And we are aware of the philanthropy in Africa, what we started for a very long time. As we continue, I think this time we need to have a structure in place. Okay, an infrastructure in place to support that. Why not something like USAID for the whole continent? But that's another conversation. So let's give the mic to Lydia, because her organization have benefited from a support from the Ford Foundation Weaving Resilience Program to strengthen their capacity. For her to share her perspective with us. Over to you, Lydia.
Thank you very much, Molai. And I want to pick off from why Cliff was referring to. I think he started off by talking about that shocks, turbulent times, shift in donor funding has always been there and will continue to be there. With that, this calls for sustainability, I think, which is the discussion for today. And my colleagues earlier were defining sustainability, and some of them talked about being able to withstand turbulent times. And I think more than ever now, we are beginning gradually to accept that times are changing. Things are changing. We are beginning to think of making more bold decisions about our operations. It's no longer business as usual. We are beginning to think of how innovative can we be so that our operations remain up above the board. We are beginning to think about how do we position our work to be able to withstand any emerging issues. We are beginning to think about realignment. How do we realign our work so that we remain above board? And so I want to refer to our experience under the Weaving program, where one of our trainers continuously said, and I would question, and she said, the more you as civil society organizations do not want to operate as businesses, the more you will continue to be unsustainable. I know this can raise questions because you think about the way you are registered. You are a non-profit making organization, but she got us thinking as an organization to say, start thinking in business sense. So as civil society, sometimes we need to put on our business hats on. We need to not just operate as projects or just be donor focused, but holistically to think about how we can grow our organizations. This also includes issues of good governance. It comes into play when we have such discussions. It talks about marketing and publicity and making more strategic decisions about our work. It gets us to think also about thinking of more long-term actions and solutions. We must ask ourselves, probably as civil societies, as you said, Mulai, I'm speaking in line with civil society, probably locally based also. We must ask ourselves why some businesses, some corporates invest so much money into marketing and visibility. And what would that mean for us if we were to adopt such an approach as civil society? We need to assess where we are now and be honest enough and being able to identify gaps and identify our stakeholders and the influence that they have on our work. So basically, my major point is not taking business as usual, but also start being innovative, start thinking outside the box. Thank you, Mulai.
Okay, thank you very much, Lydia. So I can summarize what I got from different panelists, that financial sustainability ensures long-term impact, allowing civil society organizations and NGOs to plan strategically and maintain program beyond donor-driven cycle. So it strengthens resilience, enabling organizations to withstand funding shift and economic challenges while making mission-driven decisions rather than adapting to donors' priority. So we have agreed that a strong financial foundation builds credibility. Attracting donors and partners while diversified funding through grants and income social enterprise provides flexibility and reduce financial risk. It also supports staff retention, like if we see what is going on now, scalability, and also risk management, which ensure NGOs that they can expand their impact and response to the crisis effectively. So at the end, financial sustainability enhances advocacy, accountability, and transparency, increasing at the same time donors' confidence and ensuring long-term successes. Ultimately, it allows organizations to deliver lasting and transformative impact. So that's my summary of what you have said. And to avoid keeping one-way conversation, we'll start with a poll to have a contribution from participants. June, if you can help us to have the poll, please. So please go ahead and participate to this, and we'll go together through it to assess the result, and also it will be shared with all registrants to this webinar, because these are tools which can really shape what organizations have to do in future to be financially sustainable. So the first question, and what are the biggest challenges when diversifying funding streams? It's great. We have the different options. We can see that limited donor flexibility, funders prefer restricted funding over unrestricted funding. We have 33% for that, which is interesting. The capacity strengthening is now at 17%. Building new relationship is at 27%. These are really interesting. So you can continue with the pool, and we still have 2 minutes to continue with that. Okay, I think, June, we can end the poll now, and we'll be sharing the full result at the end. Now, we can share the result, which can also provide participants with some questions.
Well, I just wanted to just, if I can jump in while we have a little bit of space here.
Yes, please.
I mean, I completely agree with what has been said. Nicky was touching on it as well, and it seems like it's coming forward in the poll. This point of flexibility of funding. Very few donors actually support this. DCA is fortunate. The Danish government is our main back donor, of course. We've had a long-standing relationship with them. We have a framework agreement whereby they give us an amount of funding, and then DCA decides how to engage with local civil society. We have very long-term partnerships that we've established, and I generally see that the Nordic governments are more supportive of this flexible funding model. And I would really like to see more engagement, maybe advocacy, joint advocacy with foundations and governments that support flexible funding, to really try to, advocate, convince governments like the US, which has not really, supported this model. And I think it's been to the detriment, really, of developing a strong civil society in many countries.
Okay. Thank you very much, Christian, for that. And that's the reality. And organizations really have to stand up and go for it. This is the real time. So let me share an example of a real world case study, and the panelists also will come and share that with you. The Ford Foundation has implemented several practical initiatives to enhance the financial sustainability of civil society organizations. For example, there is the Building Institution and Network Initiative, which is called BUILD Initiative. It was launched in 2015. The program is as a 1 billion initiative that provides long-term flexible funding to nearly 350 social justice organizations worldwide. This support enables CSOs to strengthen their infrastructure, plan strategically, and build the resilience against unforeseen challenges. In 2021, the foundation committed an additional $1 billion USD to continue this support, emphasizing the effectiveness of flexible funding in bolstering organizational sustainability. So from that, my question to the panelists is, what key insight and examples can you share from real-world successful implementation of financial sustainability models, either at your organization or from a partner organization or other organization in the sector? Let's go 2 minutes per panelist. Who's ready to go first?
Go first. Thank you for sharing the BUILD example. It's a really successful program at the Ford Foundation, and it's coming to its end after 10 years. But there's so many lessons, and people can see that on the website in terms of how you fund organizations, just to think about institution and fund them flexibly. I do want to share some of the Weaving Resilience initiatives that or our Weaving Resilience initiative that we are running from the Ford Foundation in the Southern Africa office. And as Mulai shared, we run it in different ways all over the world. But for the one in Southern Africa, I think, again, just coming back to this issue of sustainability and resilience in the face of shocks, as we call it, that financial resilience and good governance is one piece of what we believe the full sustainability puzzle to be. And so we have access, any NGO who's working on social justice initiatives can apply to be part of the Weaving Resilience, and that's financial resilience and good governance, which Humentum so well run for us. We have strategic relevance, and I think this is also important as we talk about how and Wycliffe was talking about accessing the the corporate market. And although there are some issues I feel around that, but I think part of that is how you market yourself and how you share the work that you do and how strategically relevant you are, and always coming back to that issue. The other one we talk about is wellness. And I think wellness is really key at this moment in time and always. And I think that one of the things that we don't do enough of is support organizations to just take a step back and do a temperature check in terms of how overworked staff are. How do we use wellness activities, collective wellness activities for people within organizations that work under such stressful conditions? Another part of our Weaving Resilience is leadership, and we believe really key leadership initiatives where donors should be supporting and funding leaders in the civil society space so that they are able to deal with all of the issues that they have. We're not saying that people are not good leaders. What we're saying is often we see in civil society that people don't have a space where as leaders they can come together to share. The other one is digital security, and of course that in our current system is really important in our current state. And then the other one that we really focus on, which falls under a lot of different names, but is contextual relevance. And this goes back to what some of the other panelists were talking about, is who are you acting on behalf of? Do they see you as relevant? And are you still relevant in terms of how you support that particular constituency? And I think this is really important for organizations to take stock. Sometimes we talk about the communities or those communities, but I think the organizations that I've seen that have been the most successful are really connected to the communities that they serve, listening to those communities as well. So I think that's it. I want to just end with one point, which is about this notion about how we access other funding. I think there has been resistance quite often in civil society to talk to corporate interests, because particularly in the social justice sector, because there's this us and them. And I want to ask civil society organizations to think about relationships as either strategic or tactical. Strategic relationships will be those that you have the same ideology or similar ideology, you're on the same page, you want the same things. And those are organizations that in the social justice space. Tactical relationships, you don't necessarily have to have the same ideology. If we want to move an agenda forward, sometimes we have to enter into tactical relationships with corporates who may have access to lots of money, but may not necessarily have the same ideology as you, but are willing to go with you along the way. And I think this is an important point at the moment, just to think about those two things separately, strategic and tactical relationships.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicky. So we are running out of time, so I will give 2 minutes to each panelist to respond to the question. Then we'll have to give the opportunity to participants also to come with their question. Who is willing to come next? Go ahead, Kristen.
Sure. I can just give an example, a couple of examples within DCA. So again, going to the humanitarian approach, because I think we are the representing that perspective on this panel. We have an initiative called group cash transfers. So we're a big proponent of cash and voucher assistance over food assistance. And it's very uncertain how that's going to look going forward with this new administration in the US, because there seems to be a political preference for food assistance. Nonetheless, there are many other governments that support and organizations that support cash transfers. We have an initiative in a number of countries where we work called group cash transfers, where we will transfer an amount of funding to an existing community-based organization. It can be formal, it can be quite informal. It's a very democratic process where they elect a group of representatives to lead the group in the design of the response, and then they actually carry out their own response based on the needs of the communities. It's very trust-based. The amounts are usually between 10 and 30,000 US dollars, sometimes in many cases much less. It's a very interesting model that I would like to see replicated. There are a few other INGOs that use this model. It's hard to sell this model to to donor governments, but fortunately for us, the Danish government is supportive of this as well. I did see in the chat that somebody mentions social enterprise models and diverse funding. DCA has had secondhand shops. We were actually inspired by Oxfam back in the 60s, I think it was. So we have those in Denmark. They don't generate a lot of money, but they do generate very flexible funding, and they also help to raise awareness about the organization. So there's a marketing aspect that comes with that. And then we have expanded that to food stores. So that we have an initiative called We Food, where we take basically food from grocery stores that for whatever reason can't be used. Maybe packaging is, it's not perfect. It can't be sold in the main store. So we take that. It's kind of, I don't want to call it secondhand food, but I think you get the idea. We have partners for example, in Cambodia, there's a partner that we work with, a local organization. They have a restaurant, they have a whole vocational training program, and that is completely viable in that context. And I think it's viable in other contexts as well, where you're training vulnerable youth in restaurant industry and so forth, and then you have those restaurants. So there are a lot of models out there. I think it's just a matter of understanding them.
Okay, thanks very much, Kristen. Lydia, over to you. Lydia?
Thank you, Molai. My response would be, I think going through the Weaving Resilience program enabled us as an organization to have honest discussions with ourselves around financial sustainability. It led us to ask ourselves as a team, where are we now? So we got into a process of assessing ourselves, and we went on to say, where are we going as a team? And how do we get there? So before even responding about a successful organization, I think one of the most important things is that assessment, the self-assessment, looking at your systems, developing a plan, setting targets, pursuing them, and monitoring how the targets that you've set are faring, how they are doing. And I would also want to say it's not a process for an individual. It's not a process for the head of the organization or for the business development unit, that is if you have them, or for a specific department, whether it's a marketing department in the organization, or it's not a process just for an individual, but it's a process for the whole organization, including the board. They have to be part of this journey of moving into financial sustainability. And so it gets me to just highlight a few of the things that we've put in place that we are working around in terms of moving towards financial sustainability. I think one of the most important things to also think through are policies, just putting in place the relevant policies that will guide you as you try to move through this journey. I think most of the panelists have already talked about restricted funds policy. We got to think about a reserves policy. So I think all that is critical in terms of this journey towards being financially stable. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lydia. So Wycliffe, over to you. You have only 1 minute because we have to give opportunity to participants to ask questions also. Sorry about that, but go ahead.
You are mean to me, but it's fine. Yeah. Thank you, Molai. I think if you ask, for example, there are two examples that comes to my mind. I mean, there is an organization in Kenya called the Kenya Community Development Foundation, which has shown that resiliency can be built from the local resources, from the local support that that organization has. But also more than that, resiliency can also be built, by being dynamic. You do not need to, and that dynamism involves issues about how do the organization think as an investor, although we know it is a non-profit, but how do you think as with a capitalistic mind? Because sustainability requires long-term planning. How do you continue? And another one is the one called the Bangladesh Rural Advancement Committee. There's so many examples on how they have changed lives in Bangladesh. I think it's one of the best performing non-profit or sort of pseudo non-profit organizations in the world, if we have to go by the case studies. So those really come to my mind. But what is really important in that aspect is how do the organizations begin to think of their capacity of, being able to generate and regenerate? You understand?
Yeah.
Being financially independent, how do they think of issues related to what is going on in the society, and how can we be, thinking about them as solving society's problem while also creating resources for ourselves. And they call that one social enterprising. So those issues are more there. And also more than that, I mean, I think they're now emergence of donor partnerships. A lot of donors, and I'll give you examples. I can think of many examples of that. A lot of donors, because they are interested in, getting the results out of their investment, so to speak, literally investment, but whatever the outlay that they give out there. So the collaboration that this organization may want to do to have with their donors and be co-creative in the process can also help to, to ensure that sustainability going forward. I mean, Mulai, there are many, many, many issues that we can talk about, although there's time constraints. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Wycliffe. So we don't have enough time to go to the next one. I have just shared in the chat box the steps that the organization can adapt for financial sustainability. So please try that, and you can reach out to any of us after this webinar. But in the meantime, let's try to respond to one or two questions. And I promise to all participants who have asked a question, we'll come back to you with the response to all your questions with the different tools we have shared. June, can you please assist us with the first question? I saw... June, do you have a question ready there?
Yes. So the first question that was shared, someone asked, help me understand the difference between financial sustainability and sustainability of development financing.
Okay, thank you for that. We have only 1 minute remaining. Some panelists want to come with for that question?
Wycliffe.
Wycliffe, go ahead.
Yeah, I was muted. Sorry, that's being put on the spot. And I'm going to do a short marketing for this. So CAPSI, Center on African Philanthropy, leads a conference, on it's called the African Philanthropy Conference. This year, our theme is relating to sustainable resourcing or sustainable resource mobilization for the majority world. So we know we exist in the majority world, and part of the conversation that we are thinking of is how do we think of sustainable resourcing, continuous resourcing. So financial sustainability obviously is the resilience that an organization has to continue delivering its mandate despite whatever the shocks or the turbulence that exist. But sustainable financial development is the decisions that organization now makes on how to reproduce and regenerate the resources over and over again. I hope that answers you. Sorry, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Wycliffe. That responds to that question. And we have come to the end of our time. Like I said, I will really respond to all questions we have in the chat, and it will be shared with all participants, with all the materials we have talked about it. So let me take this opportunity to thank very much our panelists, and I will give them a minute per person to conclude. Ladies first, as usual. Nicky, you are the first one on my screen. Please go ahead.
I didn't know I was a lady, but thank you so much, everyone. This was really wonderful, and look out for the Weaving Resilience Hub if you need assistance.
Thank you, Nicky. Over to you, Kristen.
I would just like to say thank you so much. I know that so many organizations out there are really struggling with this dramatic shift coming from the US government, but let's hold on to hope and let's come together. Solidarity is key at this point, and many organizations have actually survived quite well without US funding. Now is really the time to move forward and become independent.
Thank you so much, Kristen. That is well noted. Over to you, Lydia.
Thank you, Molai. I would say let's start thinking outside the box. Let's be innovative. Let's market ourselves. Let's be visible. Let's think like businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Wycliffe.
Yeah, thank you, Molai. I think this was a wonderful moment to have this critical conversation at the critical juncture. But I think the conversation is not complete, and I think I may want to invite the colleagues. CAPSI, the Center on African Philanthropy and Social Investment. Look out, we are having a conference specifically on the topic of the conversation here. So I think there's still more that still needs to be, to be delved deeper into, and I think this conversation is very, very relevant at the moment, and we need to think forward. I think that's the idea of sustainability. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wycliffe, for that, and thank you all. The last things I will recommend to participants, please go on Humentum website. You have 2 critical documents that are free you can use. The first one is called Assessing Your Organization Financial Health. That your financial health, that will allow you to understand exactly where you are, as Lydia was saying. Then you have another assessment called Planning for Financial Sustainability, self-assessment. You do that and it will really give you guidance on where you have to start. And from there, we can interact and we continue this conversation. It could be on Humentum platform, it could be on LinkedIn, but one thing is sure, we'll respond to all your questions and share the recording and the necessary document for you, because our objective is for you to be resilient. Thank you so much to all panelists. Thank you to all participants. And thank you also to June, who has supported us technically for this webinar. And let's stay in touch. Have a wonderful evening or a good day, depending on where you are. Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.